Hello folks, I'm Mike Murtis, and welcome to my review of Terranigma on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, as well as its original platform, the Japanese platform, the Super Famicom. Now this is a game I never ever had the opportunity to play when it came out because it never came out in the United States. It never came out in North America, period. And it's a shame because it was translated into English. PAL territories got the game, as well as Japan obviously got the game. And it is probably, now that I've finally had the chance to play it and play it to completion, it is probably one of my favorite action RPGs on the Super Nintendo. And that's kind of my vibe when it comes to RPGs these days. I'm not so much into the turn-based, grindy RPGs. I want to get my action in, I want to have my RPG elements, but I don't want to spend hours upon hours upon hours playing RPGs. So I prefer to tend to like the action RPGs like Ys, Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore, the Seiken Densetsu series. And this is right up there. Now, this game, Terranigma, is sort of a part of a trilogy of sorts, though I don't think they're really directly connected to each other. It's been a long time since I've played the previous two games in the series, the first being Soul Blazer, which came out pretty early in the Super Nintendo's lifespan, if I remember. That was like 1991 or early 1992, I want to say. And I have it. I actually have a box copy of it, and I've never really gotten into it. I was never really super impressed with the game, period. Later on, though, we would get its sequel of sorts, in Illusion of Gaia, which I think in PAL territories it's called Illusion of Time, if I remember correctly. And that was a game that was really pushed by Nintendo, and I want to say that that was before Earthbound, maybe after Earthbound, but I remember actually getting a mailer promoting the game and telling you about Illusion of Gaia and what it was about and this epic journey that's sort of like a Legend of Zelda game. And that's kind of a decent way to describe what the Terranigma game is like, as well as Illusion of Gaia and Soul Blazer is its top overhead view. It plays a lot like a Zelda game, though the action is a little bit smoother. And like I said, I've had a couple run-ins with this game in the past. It was via emulation, but I never really gave it a fair shake, and today we're going to do that. So what is Terranigma about? Well, the story starts out very simple and spirals into this huge adventure, and I have to say, when I first started this game, I thought there wasn't going to be too much into playing this game and too much in the storyline, but boy was I wrong. You play as Ark, which is the character I have running around here, this spiky haired dude that, you know, maybe kind of looks like he's related to Randy from the Secret of Mana game. And let's face it, this kid is he's kind of a troubled kid. He runs around, he wreaks havoc, and just generally doesn't care. I mean, he doesn't have a high opinion about a lot of people. He just likes to mess around. He's lazy, and as you can tell right here, the elder is already calling him in to give him a stern conversation about ruining all the weavings at the Weaver Hall. And you have a choice. You know, you can kind of make Ark this character who, you know, even though he causes a lot of trouble, he generally doesn't mean any harm to it, which is actually the case. Or you can make an excuse and just kind of play off that, you know, Ark's never at fault here. And funny enough, when I played through this game, I typically was very, very honest, you know, trying to apologize or do whatever I needed to do to get on a character's good side. And you can actually change the way the game plays a little bit. There's not really huge branching paths to it, but the story will play out slightly different than it would if you did the other choice, which is especially cool in the intro here. What actually ends up happening, and spoilers if you've never played the game, but Ark eventually opens a Pandora's box of sorts, and it ends up freezing all of the villagers inside the town. And in order to unfreeze all the people of the town, Ark needs to go to these towers that are all around the world, which ends up being underground. Yeah, it looks like you're just in a normal town here, right? And that's actually not the case. This city, this world that Ark is in, is underground, and it ends up developing into this huge story where Ark is told by the elder of this town to basically restore all life to the world. And you start from the very beginning to bringing back plant life, to bringing back animals, to eventually bringing back humans. And while you're doing this stuff, you know, in the beginning you have the ability to communicate with plants, and when animals come to life you lose that ability. And when you bring humans back to the surface world, you lose the ability to talk to animals. So it's really cool. It's a really neat story that kind of shows you the development and the evolution of the world. And even though things are improving, they're also not really improving. And technology starts to get ahead of things and again starts to lead the world to its demise. And only Ark this time can stop the demise of humans like it happened before. So it's a very cool story. It develops into something very, very cool, and definitely left me a little shocked because I didn't think there was going to be much to it other than going to all these towers in the game and saving villagers. So another fantastic thing about Terranigma is just how big the world is when you actually get to the surface world. Well, how big is the world? Well, it literally is planet Earth. You have North America, you have South America, you have Africa, you have Europe, you have Antarctica, the North Pole, the South Pole, you have all of it. And the world is accessible by a couple different vehicles as well as traveling around. And again, you get to see the world develop as you go through the ages and you start restoring life. And here you see me cruising around in a ship, which I picked up freeing up a mermaid tower. And now I'm actually going to travel to the airport here. Yeah, as technology starts increasing and improving, you can actually get access to an airplane. And as long as there is a runway, you can land. So it's not like your typical airship where, you know, you can land anywhere like in Final Fantasy. You have to have a runway. And what's really cool in this game is you kind of foster the world trade of the planet. So what we have here is Australia, which is a relatively unknown land to most of the rest of the world. And you actually find a person who develops an airplane, and as you're going to Australia by boat, the townspeople there are kind of talking about how they'd love to get more people to check out Australia. They'd love to get them to come check out their town, but how do they do it? They're far out, the boat lanes aren't really good for things. So you mentioned that you know somebody that can build an airplane. And you go back to the guy who built the airplane, and he says, you know, hey, if there's any place you know that they could benefit from having the ability to fly, give them these plans and have them use it. Well, you take it to Australia and you give it to the city board, and they go ahead and they build an airstrip, and now planes can get out of there, and now trade has gone up. So new items and other stuff will go, and things will change even more there, which is actually really, really cool. Something I've never really seen in a Super Nintendo RPG before. But in this case, I can take my plane and I am going to go ahead and land so I can explore more of the world. But other than just your standard overworld map, you got a ship, You got an airplane. It's pretty cool. You can even use birds to have them kind of fly you around different places, so pretty neat. So one of the things that can make or break an action RPG is the combat. Really great example. Secret of Mana is a classic game to a lot of big RPG fans out there. But let's be honest, the combat sucks. It's very clunky, it's not a lot of fun, and by the time you get your character's experience points up, you're really just spamming spells repeatedly, right? So it takes away from the fun factor of an action RPG a lot. And I'm happy to report that Terranigma does not do this. The combat is very much like the previous games in its series, Soul Blazer and Illusion of Gaia, and is right up there with Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, if not better. So just to kind of give you a visual demonstration here of how Ark easily controls. This is a dungeon that is far, far, far into the game. It's actually one of the second to the last dungeons, if not one of the final dungeons in the game. And I'm just kind of at the beginning of the dungeon here, and I just want to show you what Ark can do without giving away too many spoilers of the game. So yeah, Ark moves in all regular 8 directions, which is super handy. Y will allow him to run, B will allow him to jump, A will allow him to strike, and if you hit A in a quick fashion, 100 hand slap style Street Fighter, you'll do this really neat jab motion. If you have an item selected, you can hit X to activate that, and if you hit R, he'll kind of spin his staff around a bit, I believe, or his weapon emits a light, and that will block enemy attacks, which you absolutely need to do for the final boss in this game, by the way. Otherwise, he'll just melt you to pieces. So when you're fighting enemies, it's really easy to get into combat, to fight them, to trap them in walls, and do damage to them. I mean, just look at all the different attacks Ark has here, and how you can chain them all together. It's fun. So like I can jump, I can hit this, and I can do a dive attack. It's just really, really fun. Now, unfortunately, in most cases, once you complete a dungeon, the enemies aren't usually there, which I believe is actually the case for this. I've beaten this dungeon, and there's no enemies. And again, I really don't want to spoil stuff for you, but take my word for it, the combat is super, super fun and really easy to do. I finished this game at level 33 here with 415 life points and a ton of money. And I don't want to say I was overpowered, but it was easy enough to get through the majority of the game once I hit level 30, and the last 3 levels just came out of regular experience points. If you don't take the time to level up like halfway through the game, you're going to get destroyed by minor enemies, and it gets really frustrating. I actually ran into a point where I was getting destroyed in this forest, and I missed the opportunity to really grind my levels up in a quick fashion in a town infested by zombies. That's right, a town infested by zombies. And because of that, it was impossible. I mean, I was just literally getting destroyed by everything. My save ended up getting corrupted, and I had to go back and actually replay a portion of the game, and going back to that zombie town, I just totally grinded my levels to level 30. It took maybe an hour, if anything, and made the rest of the game very easy. So there is a little bit of grindiness to this, not a ton. It goes by super quick, just as quick as it does with an East game, if you've played any of those, so not too bad at all. Let's talk about the item screens. So if you hit select here, Ark will go into Pandora's box. That's what I'm going to call it anyway. And right now I am in the item screen, and you can see all the different items that Ark has. So I got a jewel box, I got speed shoes, I got giant leaves, I got sharp claws, I use those to climb walls, and I got an herb, which I believe that lets you breathe underwater or swim or something like that. These bulbs, if you're wondering what the bulbs are, small, medium, and large, these are your healing items. You have your poison cure, you have Stardew, serum, so basically things to fix any status issues you run into. And then there's all of these miscellaneous items that you can get. Here's a key to the tower, here's a royal letter, And some of these are actually trade items. I was talking to you guys earlier about how you can incorporate trade throughout the world, and some of these items I've picked up and I've not taken them to the appropriate people. So there's a lot of side quests you can do as well, and you can benefit from doing them. Let's go to the armor door here, and you'll see all the different types of armor you can get in the game, which is pretty cool. They'll give you the status ratings and everything. Pretty simple stuff. Your weapon door. It looks like I'm missing a couple weapons actually. I wonder if there's like an ultimate weapon here, but I think the hero pike is actually the best weapon in the game. Different pikes, different spears, different rods will do different types of elemental attacks or certain types of attack towards certain enemies, so some will do more damage than others depending on what type of enemy you're fighting, so it's good to know that. And then we're back to our item door here. So if we go to the center door, you have, of course, access to everything else, but you have your battle handbook. So this will show you how to do all the different attacks, which is kind of cool. You have your jewelry box with all the different spells and stuff that you can get, or people you can summon. How you can do different movements, your settings if you want. You can set stuff to stereo or mono, what your cursor is. I was going to say, this isn't on mono, is it? That'd be hilarious. And that's pretty much the status box for that. So combat's fun, items are easy to pull out, spells are easy to use. Very, very, very fun there. I will say one thing about Terranigma, there are certainly a ton of different locations to visit. Anything from caves, like you're gonna see here, that you can run around and explore and walk tight ropes, or in my case, fall to my death in order to find hidden items and extra upgrades that could help your character out. There's also a variety of towns, as you can imagine, and it's cool because each town kind of takes its place in time. Some are more advanced than other towns, which I'm hoping to show you here momentarily. Now this is a town that actually follows the mad scientist that hid himself during the collapse of the world the first time, and this is kind of his clan of followers, Baruga. So each town has its own unique trait and place in the world, essentially. Looks like a character from Full Metal Alchemist, though I'm not remembering who. So, as you can imagine, everyone in this particular town just worship this scientist dude, and aren't very bright because his plans are less than great for what humanity is. And of course, in every town you have your standard inn. To save, you can actually use these books, and that'll bring up the save screen. And yes, I spent about 14 hours playing this game and getting through it. So where does this game stand up graphically for me? It goes up there. I mean, you got a lot of great looking graphics, sharp looking graphics, a ton of variety, desert, storms, outback environments of the world. You really do have a ton of different locations that distinctively look different, and look different depending on how you resurrect the world and when you resurrect the world. So not everything is always the same, which is cool. And it's way up there, guys. It really is way up there on how good it looks. In my opinion, even though some of the boss characters aren't as big, it looks just as good as Chrono Trigger, Secret of Evermore, any of those action RPG based games. Chrono Trigger is more of a turn-based, I know, but it looks just as good as those games. It really does. So overall, if you have never taken the opportunity to play Terranigma, I recommend you do. I actually regret not playing it through sooner. Again, with the fact that it never came out in the United States, I guess I can understand why I've never really taken the time to dive into it. And it doesn't look as deep as it actually becomes. So give the game a chance. It has so much great stuff to it. I really wish they would put this out at least on Virtual Console or something. There is no other way to play it other than emulation or playing it on the original Super Nintendo or Super Famicom. In my case, I am playing it on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Definitely check it out. It is highly recommended by me. And before I go, I have to say that another great feature of the game, and I always talk about this with games I love generally, but I love the music in this game. It's very catchy, it's got uplifting music, it's got sad music, it's got action-packed music. You really feel it, it's very catchy. And my favorite track on the game is actually, I believe it's called Resurrection of the World. It's a very short track, it's very basic, but I went ahead and did my own remix of it, and I figured I'd throw it on the end of this review. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed kind of this new format that I wanted to do for reviews, because really it's pulling things right out of my head rather than sitting and writing it down and talking about it. I think it's more real to me. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, and if you haven't played this game, folks, go check it out. Thanks for watching.